Welcome back to 102.1 FM and AM 1240 WFOY News, Sports, and Talk for St. Johns County. And welcome to the Affordable Housing Matters, a program on local housing issues presented by WFOY on the first Friday of the month. Produced in cooperation with the St. Johns Housing Partnership and Mike Bond's Public Relations. This morning, I have got Bill Lazar, Executive Director of the St. Johns Housing Partnership, along with Realtor Steve Ladrido, President of the St. Augustine and St. Johns County Board of Realtors. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. How are you?
Welcome. I am good. I'm glad to have you guys here this morning.
This is great. It's actually an opportune time for us, kicking off June, because it's also National Homeownership Month, which is part of why Steve's here. There's a big push for home ownership in Florida with a new down payment program that the Board of Realtors helped champion, and so we just wanted to make sure everybody knew what was going on and talk it up.
Awesome. This is very timely, yes. I told you last time you were here, I just sold my place, and now we're looking to build, and now I'm like, oh no, what am I doing?
Yep.
This is the craziest time, because I've bought and sold houses, several over the years, and this is completely different.
Yeah, limited inventory out there right now.
It's not like it ever has been before, and I feel like, what am I doing? It's crazy. So yes, let's jump into that. Let's talk about what you guys have on your docket today to kind of cover.
Yeah, first, I mean, June is National Homeownership Month, so that's the promotion of just the American dream of owning a home. And fortunately for us, about 65 out of 100 households own their own home, but there is still a large gap for home ownership, especially now in these times where the cost of building is really high, inventory is very low, demand is still very high. So you've got limited inventory out there, and it's tough to find a home in today's market.
Yes.
And the big challenge really ends up being not that homes aren't being built, because there's obviously a lot being built here. It's getting them in the price range, especially for our local workforce, which is, part of what Steve and I, both of us volunteer on a couple of the county's housing committees. But it's a huge part of economic development. If we can't stabilize our own workforce, especially for small businesses, they're really challenged to keep the doors open, stay fully staffed, serve all their customers in a timely manner. So we've got to figure out different ways to get people, into home ownership and into stable housing.
Yeah, that's the tough question, and it's not just here; it's all across the country.
It is.
But definitely here in St. Johns County, with rise of building costs, you got interest rates coming up.
Well, everybody wants to live here because it's awesome.
It's popular.
This is a beautiful place.
Yeah.
Can't even fault people for wanting to move here, right?
Florida as a whole continues to grow, but Northeast Florida exponentially. So yeah, you're right. Everybody wants to be here, and why wouldn't they?
Right, exactly. But it comes with its challenges.
It does.
Well, and really the big challenge, I think we keep coming back to, and you see there's a real sentiment in the community where people want to, quote unquote, stop growth, because they're tired of all the folks moving here. And it's really challenging, because at a certain point, the growth is going to happen anyhow. So either we plan for it or it's going to be anarchy, and then it's a real mess. But for folks who have been born and raised here and watched their kids grow up here, or been here with families for 200 or 300 years, they're saying we're getting priced out of the market. And there are two sides to it, one of which is if they've owned land for a long time, it's suddenly worth a whole lot more than it ever was, and that could be their ticket to retirement or something else. Mm-hmm. But depending on who they sell it to, it may or may not benefit any local folks. I had a realtor call me the other day who has an older gentleman who owned 18 lots, and he's thinking about selling them. And he actually told her, I'd like to sell them to someone who's going to work with local families. Right. Just how he wants to do that. I'm thrilled to think that we might be able to sit down and talk to somebody like that, just because that's our real challenge. It's hard enough trying to find something and secure it quickly, but to be able to do it and have someone work with you because they want to see local families benefit from it is huge.
Right. It's not often you find that.
No. Well, it's really hard. You sit and think, either from the realtor or the builder's perspective, It's just like working in a store. You want to sell your product and move it as quickly as possible. And on the affordable housing side, where in one of the programs we'll talk about, this new Hometown Heroes, there's down payment assistance available. But that means someone has to find the house, get it under contract, work with the lender, get the lender to agree that, oh, this new down payment program will be part of it. And that can take 30, 45 days if everything goes smoothly. So the seller's kind of going, well, this other guy is willing to close in 2 weeks, and I just want to kind of keep it moving. So it's really challenging. We've got to get everybody to sort of put their heads together and say, at a certain point, some of what I'll do should benefit workforce housing. Otherwise, we're going to have, the small business owners just in a real bind.
Yeah, it definitely depletes the workforce when they don't have a place to live, because we had a conversation the other day at the Board of Realtors where, people are driving 30, 40 minutes commuting for a pretty small salary.
Right.
And when they can work 10, 15 minutes closer to their home because they've already had to move out of the county, why wouldn't they?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, with the cost of gas and everything, the cost of everything through the roof at the moment, it just makes the most sense.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's just that I think that's one of the points that we keep harping on when we talk about the economic development impact. As an employer, you spend time training someone, and it really doesn't matter whether it's law enforcement, fire department, the healthcare industry, or hospitality. You train someone to do a job. It takes your time as the owner and some kind of process to get them up to speed. And to think that if that person can do the same work closer to where they finally found a house, at some point they're going to go, why am I doing this commute? I mean, I commuted from Jacksonville when I first moved down here for about 3 years. And when I finally quit that commute, I was like, wow, I got 2 hours more in my day. What am I going to do with all this time? And people look at that. And so we end up paying the cost of retraining. And I've been doing the affordable housing stuff since 1998 here. And I remember that was something that Sheriff Perry was concerned about back then. He said, I get these young men and women in, we get them staffed up, we get them certified, we get them trained, and within 5 years, they're going to work in one of the other counties for a little bit more money because they bought a home over there. They could buy more house or less money, whatever it was. And I think we've really got to take that seriously and say, how do we help stabilize people to remain living close to the jobs? Plus, if they're close to jobs, it cuts down on traffic.
Right.
And that's the big thing everybody is
That's
grousing
what
about.
you hear. It's housing and traffic.
Yeah. And
All
they're
the guests I
related.
have on the last few weeks, months have been related and somehow to housing and traffic in town. But again, it comes with
More
the
people,
growth,
more
the
cars
more
on the
people.
road.
Exactly.
Well, the one program, the big thing I think when we talk about this is at a certain point, whether it's rising land costs, rising materials, the seller's expectations, at a certain point, the number is whatever that number is. The big challenge is, so how do we help? And I really think that it ends up being, it's like a three-legged stool. We've got to have government, builders, and lenders all putting their heads together at the same time. If you get lower interest rates, you can kind of compensate for that rising material costs. Same thing with the land. Lower interest rates still makes it work. If the government looks at regulatory incentives that allow for a little bit more density, or one of the things the county is considering for some of the workforce housing incentives is possibly a program to pay down impact fees. That's $12,000, $15,000 that they could reduce from the sales price. So, those are the kinds of things. Down payment programs help. Interest rate, reductions help. And so do any kind of regulatory relief issues.
All right. On that note, we're going to stop real quick.
All right.
I hate to be so rude and interrupt you,
You're
but
good.
we're going to take a real quick break, and we'll be right back on 102.1 FM and AM 1240 WFOY News, Sports, and Talk for St. Johns County. You are listening to Housing Matters on the first Friday of the month. Stick around.
So we can bring this up, and they're still listening to us.
They are, yes.
So let's talk about the Hometown Heroes and how that, because I think one of the things that's really important with this is it's still the Sadowski Trust Fund money. We're still beating that drum that this is where all the sales are adding to that pot of money.
Should have been, we should have been focused and having this money a long time ago, but that's besides the point, right?
Right.
I mean, $100 million, that's going to make an impact, over 3 million opportunities for potential homeowners. So it's going to be a big deal.
And that's the big question. So how do we put that push on steroids? Now, I had a couple of cops in my office yesterday. I didn't do anything wrong. We've got a program there
Suspicious.
called Operation New Hope, where they're helping people who've gotten out of prison get
Oh, right, yes. I've heard about this
reintroduced back.
program, right.
And so a couple of cops were in there talking to the program manager about how they do it. And I said, just want to make sure you guys know about this. And he actually said, HR just sent out a flyer about that the other day.
Nice.
So it's like, we're getting the word out. I sent it over to Flagler Hospital, to John Eaton, and to the city sheriff and fire departments, just saying, just make sure your folks know, because
That's what it takes. It takes the distribution of this program. We're working with our business partners through the Board of Realtors that are lenders that are able to do this program, because not every lender is going to be able to do this.
I just hope
There are
they-
guidelines where if they're a third-party lender source and they're not direct
See,
lending,
that's what I wasn't sure about.
yeah, if they're not direct lending, they can't participate in the program. So there are some hurdles that you have to jump through. You're going to have to find.
So that leaves out a lot of the track builders.
Yes, because they provide their own
Yeah.
financing. A majority of them do.
Yeah.
But what you'll find, I think, is they're going to have to be flexible. There's not many builder incentives like there used to be,
Yeah.
because they don't have to. So you're not missing out on a whole lot. And you outweigh the programs, right? If you use a lender that can get the program done versus what the builder's offering, and if it's more, then obviously you take the higher.
It's one of the things I've seen on the Builders Council over the years. The number of associates has kind of fallen off a little bit. And I think it's in part because the associates look and go, the builders, especially the track builders, are setting up sort of a one-stop shop. And it kind of cuts out some of the realtors. It definitely cuts out some of the lenders.
Oh, definitely.
And that's a lot of local business that we're
Doesn't
kind of
happen.
missing out on. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one of the guidelines that obviously is not clearly laid out in the program, but through research we found
This
that.
wasn't laid out very clearly.
Well, I think to your point, the biggest thing that we can do to make an impact is identify all of these occupations and employees.
And I don't know if you've got a copy, but I brought you some stuff afterwards I'll leave with you, just in case people call you.
Yes,
But
absolutely.
it's some stuff, there's actually like 40 or 50 different professions that are listed as eligible for this one program.
Oh, yeah?
Which
Nice.
is kind of interesting, and it's a lot of it, it's related to healthcare and stuff like that. But I noticed they've got daycare workers that are in there. Now,
That's
I'm a little offended that there's no space for construction workers. The guys that are building shelter don't get any help.
Gotta get on top of that.
Yeah, I told some of the other, and I just sent a note to Representative Stevenson and Renner and said, it'd be nice if maybe we could get a lobbyist that would put the construction workers in the next one that comes around. 'Cause
The one
it's
that's
like,
built, the ones that are building it, right?
yeah, whatever. Come on, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been struggling with that with our crew. We're
That's us.
slowly putting our people either into our rentals or helping them buy a home.
And we're back on 102.1 FM and AM 1240 WFOY, News, Sports, and Talk for St. Johns County. We're talking with Bill Lazar, Executive Director of St. John's Housing Partnership, along with Realtor Steve Ladrido, President of the St. Augustine and St. Johns County Board of Realtors, discussing National Homeownership Month and lots of other interesting topics. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Welcome
again.
back.
Thank you. Yeah, we want to kind of talk about one of the down payment programs that recently has come out in Florida. It's part of the Sadowski Housing Trust Fund, which is one of the most creative housing trust funds across the country that was started here in Florida back in 1992. But those trust funds, it's a housing trust fund that is actually filled by the sale of real estate. So any kind of real estate transaction, there's a little bit on a doc stamp that goes into the housing trust fund, which then gets reapportioned out to every municipality to use in a variety of very creative ways. But one of newest ones that come out is called Hometown Heroes, and you
Yeah.
want to tell them a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Hometown Heroes is really designed for our frontline workers across a variety of industries, from protective services, law enforcement, firefighters, paramedics, educational instruction, including childcare. A big portion of healthcare practitioners, healthcare support, and then of course our veterans. So there's $100 million that they put into the program called Hometown Heroes. Potentially over 3 million employees in Florida could apply and be accepted into the program. And the neat thing about it is it's a bond alternative versus previous programs in the past. So they can get up to 5% or up to $25,000 to be used as down payment assistance, closing cost credit, or even to bring down the loan to value ratio on the loan. They just have to apply. There's a form that you have to fill out, and you have to work with a specific lender that can do the program. So it should be exactly what we need to get our frontline workers into some housing.
And it's really it's a unique program it's just kicking off. Yesterday was the start of it. It is sort of part of National Homeownership Month, and it really, I was telling Steve earlier that as often as I talk about homeownership opportunities, and I've been doing this now for 25 plus years, I can walk into any business in town and someone will say they've never heard about down payment assistance. They never thought there was some way that could help them come up with those closing costs and everything else. And that's what this is for. And this in particular, I think, is really unique because it's targeting people in certain occupations. And it's a lot of those folks that when I go to my doctor's appointments or my dental appointment, I go, yeah, that's the person we need to stabilize. It's the nurse, it's the dental tech. They actually, I'm looking at the list. We have all teachers, teachers, classroom teachers, career specialists, librarians, counselors, social workers, school psychologists. We have daycare workers. We have dentists, dental hygienists, dental assistants, speech language, acupuncturists, athletic trainers. I'm not quite sure about that one, but I'm glad you guys, if you can get it, congratulations. Massage therapists. It's about 50 different occupations. You can Google Hometown Heroes. You can find the link at the Florida Housing Finance Corporation. If you're thinking about buying a home, or if you've given up thinking about buying a home because you couldn't figure out how to look at it,
Right.
Take a look at this and see, because it's up to 5% of the closing cost. 5% of the sales price can be used towards down payment and closing costs. It could be that boost that gives you a chance to go out. And then, as Steve said, you've got to find a local lender that is willing to work with us, but there's tons of them. I think there's over 1,000 lenders across the state that are willing to participate in this program.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's just like you're saying, these are our
who
people
we
that
need.
we need to stay here,
Yes.
because we can't go without dental
Right.
techs
Well,
and
in
nurses
my one,
and the assistants in the office, doctor's office. We need them here. We need them to live here and be able to live and work here.
Yeah, these are the critical employees that really are the backbone of our community. So it just makes sense to be able to take care of them.
and this is what down payment programs do. And this isn't the only down payment program that's available here in St. Johns County. The Housing Partnership is building homes for families under a certain income bracket, where as long as we build a green certified home, regardless of their profession, they can buy a house and they can get up to $25,000 in down payment assistance. So I don't want people to think, oh, I didn't fit on the list. I'm a construction worker. No one listed me, or I'm part of the hotel retail industry, hospitality. There are still programs out there that can help them buy a home. We need people to really start looking, asking around. We need local folks who own land to think, if you're going to sell, whether it's an existing house or property that you own, give someone who's going to build affordable housing a shot. We might be able to pay what your asking price is. We might take a little bit longer to get there,
Right.
but we know there's a down payment program that will put somebody local into that home.
And you have through the housing partnership and through your other partnerships, you have the ability to keep those houses affordable. It's just being able to do it on a large scale. That's the hard part. Is mostly the nonprofit sector is the one providing the majority of the affordable workforce housing.
And I tell people all the time, if nonprofits are the only folks involved in affordable housing, we have market failure. because
Right.
that
Yes,
you can't tell a builder you have to build something that you're going to make smaller margins. The builder's got to support his or her family.
Exactly.
So we've got to sit there and say, okay, the market is what it is. How do we create workarounds? And that's what regulatory relief can do. That's what down payment assistance can do. That's what just sometimes a little bit of creative financing will make it all work. So we've got to get everybody to pitch in. The housing partnership. That's our mission. That's where
Right.
Our Habitat chapter does an amazing job in getting families who are on the lower end of the housing scheme into really nice homes. They're finishing up their one subdivision over off of West Augustine, Canopy Oaks. They're great looking homes. I think they've sold the last one, but they've got a new development that they're planning on starting. Will be another 20 homes. So I think they recently were taking new applications. And, I told them, I said, you need to champion the occupations of the folks. Tell people, who are you building homes for? They work in the retail industry. They work at the school board. They work for local government. Those letting people know where those employees are finally being stabilized, because that's one of the real challenges that we're having is that if you're renting right now, people are really nervous.
Yeah.
They don't know if the house is going to get sold out from under them. Even if you've got a lease, they have run into folks that said, especially the mom and pop landlords, I'm just kind of tired. I've heard that insurance is going to go through the roof. I think it's time for me to sell. And that's what homeownership is all about. It stabilizes the workforce. You know what your mortgage payment is going to be for the next 30 years. You know where you and your kids are going to go to school. You're not moving. The kids don't have to worry about the back and forth changing schools. I was an Army brat, so we moved every 2 years. And that's really disruptive for some kids to go, oh, well, you were going to go to St. Augustine High, and now you're going to Pedro, or vice versa.
Right.
So, that home ownership really helps to stabilize.
Well, I
people.
think also, not to interrupt, but just for me being out in the area and talking to so many people, I think that there's a lot of fear.
Yeah.
And that's what you get stuck in, and then you immediately think, forget it, I can never own a house. And you just kind of brush it off, and then
But see,
don't look into
Right.
there are programs, there is so much out there. We're very fortunate in this town to have all of this too.
the critical part is when you get folks that get to that point where they feel kind of depressed or scared or anything else. Most people are not stupid. They look at their economic situation at a certain point in time, and Steve says, gee, if I can't buy a house here, maybe I need to consider the surrounding counties. Maybe I need to consider further inland. Depending on my profession, I might be able to find a job somewhere else where I can buy my home. Because we come back to the same thing. Home ownership is how most working class families build their wealth.
Absolutely.
When you look back over the last 40 or 50 years, most of our small entrepreneurs built their businesses by relying on their home ownership. They either built the business out of their house, ran a little business on the side.
Right.
They borrowed against their equity either for themselves or for their kids, or they sold that house and moved up. So we've got to help get people stable, and home ownership is definitely one of the ways that we can do that. The one other thing I'd want to add is when you think about home ownership, the housing partnership also offers programs that helps to keep people in their homes. We've been in the home repair business for 25 years, helping people just maintain the homes they own. We've got a HUD certified counseling program that helps people who are at risk of foreclosure, because what we're seeing for some folks, we've got elderly people who've owned a home for a long time. One of them passes and suddenly they've got half the income and the same mortgage, and so they start to fall apart. So we've got counseling services that can help people if they are in danger of foreclosure also.
All right. Well, that's our time.
Okay.
We had a lot to talk about. And boy, the time just flies, doesn't it? When we
does.
get into something this important. This has been the First Friday Affordable Housing Matters, a program of housing issues presented by WFOY and produced in cooperation with the St. John's Housing Partnership and Mike Bontz Public Relations. Happy Friday. Thank you guys for
Thank
joining
you.
me this morning.
Thanks for
We'll
having
see
us.
you all first Friday next month.
All right.
Cool.